"Let's vote," my sister Amanda declared, standing at the head of our family's mahogany dining table, her perfectly manicured hands spread wide like some corporate CEO closing a hostile takeover. "All in favor of removing James from the estate, raise your hands." I sat quietly, watching as hands shot up around the table. My mother, not even hesitating. My father, slower but still certain. 3 cousins who barely visited except when money was involved. Even my Aunt Patricia, who used to sneak me cookies when I was a kid, raised her hand after a slight pause. Amanda's smile grew wider with each vote. Her victory was almost complete. After all, she'd spent months orchestrating this moment, building her case against me, painting me as the irresponsible younger brother who couldn't be trusted with the family legacy. 9 votes, she announced triumphantly. Motion carried. The room erupted in murmurs of approval. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, playing the part of the distressed parent perfectly. "It's for the best, James," she said, not quite meeting my highs. "You've never taken the estate seriously." I looked around at their faces, these people who claimed to be family. Some avoided my gaze. Others stared back defiantly. Amanda stood there, practically glowing with satisfaction. She'd always been the responsible one, the perfect daughter who could do no wrong. And now she thought she'd won it all. "Anything to say?" she asked, her voice dripping with false sympathy. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out a thick envelope and placed it on the table. "Just one thing," I said calmly. "You might want to check who really owns this estate." The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda's smile faltered slightly as she reached for the envelope. "What are you talking about?" "The estate belongs to the family trust." "Open it," I said, leaning back in my chair. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled out the documents. I watched her eyes scan the first page, then the second. The color drained from her face. This can't be right," she whispered. "What is it?" my father demanded, reaching for the papers. "The deed," Amanda's voice cracked. "It's in James's name. All of it. The house, the grounds, everything." Now it was my turn to smile. "Grandpa transferred everything to me 6 months ago," I explained, my voice steady. "Right before he passed. He knew exactly what you were planning, Amanda." The chaos that erupted was almost beautiful. My mother gasped, my father started shouting, and Amanda just stood there, papers shaking in her hands, her perfect world crumbling around her. "You're lying," she finally managed. "This has to be fake." I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. "Would you like to see the transfer records? Or maybe the security camera footage of you going through Grandpa's office last week, looking for documents you thought existed?" She flinched. "Bahar. That's right, sis. I know all about your little late-night searches, just like I know about the money you've been siphoning from the estate accounts for the past year." More gasps, more shocked faces. My father slumped in his chair, suddenly looking very old. "You can't prove anything," Amanda hissed, but her voice lacked conviction. "Actually, I can prove everything." I stood up slowly. "Grandpa kept meticulous records. He knew you were stealing long before he died. That's why he changed everything over to me. He knew you couldn't be trusted." "James," my mother started, but I cut her off. "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't pretend you didn't know what she was doing. You all enabled her, convinced yourselves that her lies about me were true because it was easier than admitting what she really was." I walked around the table, enjoying the way they shrank back from me. "For years, I watched you favor her, excuse her behavior, believe every word she said about me. The irresponsible one, the troublemaker, the black sheep. Meanwhile, she was the one stealing from all of you." Amanda's face had gone from white to red. "You ungrateful little—" "Careful," I warned. "You're in my house now." Actually, I paused, looking around the grand dining room with its crystal chandelier and antique furniture. "You're all in my house. You can't just throw us out," my father protested. "This is our home." "Was your home," I corrected. "And yes, I can. In fact, I checked my watch. You have exactly 48 hours to pack your things and leave." The uproar was immediate. Everyone talking at once, shouting, pleading. Amanda lunged for me, but our cousin Michael held her back. "You're bluffing," she spat. "You don't have the guts." I pulled out another envelope, this one containing eviction notices. "Try me." "James, please." My mother was crying now, real tears this time. "We can work this out. We're family." "Family?" I laughed, and the sound made them all flinch. Family doesn't try to vote someone out of their home. Family doesn't steal and lie and manipulate. You stopped being my family the moment you chose her lies over me. I dropped the eviction notices on the table. 48 hours. Anything left behind will be considered abandoned property and disposed of. You'll regret this, Amanda snarled, finally breaking free from Michael's grip. You think you can handle this estate? You'll run it into the ground within a month. I smiled, and this time, it reached my eyes. Actually, I've been running it for the past 6 months. Who do you think has been managing the accounts since Grandpa died? Making the investments? Handling the staff? Her face fell as realization dawned. All those successful business decisions she'd been taking credit for. They had been mine. That's right, sis. While you were busy plotting against me, I was actually learning how to manage this place. Grandpa taught me everything before he died. He knew what he was doing when he chose me. I'll fight this, she declared, but her voice wavered. I'll get lawyers involved. Go ahead. I shrugged. The transfers are all legal. The documentation is perfect. And I added, watching her closely, I have proof of every penny you stole. So really, please, get lawyers involved. I'd love to see you try to explain those transactions in court. The fight seemed to drain out of her. She collapsed into a chair, the papers falling from her limp fingers. 48 hours, I repeated, walking toward the door. I suggest you start packing. Wait, my father called out. Where are we supposed to go? I turned back, looked at them all one last time. Not my problem. Maybe Amanda can help you, since she's so good with money. Though I smiled coldly, she might need to return what she stole first. I left them there, sitting in stunned silence in what was now officially my dining room. As I walked through the grand hallway, past the family portraits and antique vases, I felt lighter than I had in years. Upstairs in my study, formerly Grandpa's study, I poured myself a glass of his favorite whiskey and sat in his old leather chair. On the desk was a photograph of us together, taken just weeks before he died. He was teaching me about the estate's finances, both of us bent over ledgers and documents. You were right, Grandpa, I whispered to the photograph. They showed their true colors exactly like you said they would. I opened my laptop and pulled up the estate's security camera feeds. They were still in the dining room, arguing now. Amanda was screaming at our parents, probably blaming them for not stopping this somehow. My mother was sobbing into her handkerchief. My father just sat there, staring at nothing. With a few clicks, I began the process of canceling their access cards, changing security codes, and revoking their privileges to the estate's accounts. By morning, they would be completely locked out of everything. My phone buzzed, a text from Amanda. You can't do this to us. We're your family. I typed back a simple response. You should have thought of that before you tried to take everything from me. Then I blocked her number, along with everyone else who had raised their hand in that vote. Family? No, they lost the right to call themselves that the moment they chose greed over loyalty. I took another sip of whiskey, enjoying the quiet of the house. Soon, it would be even quieter. No more Amanda's schemes, no more mother's manipulations, no more father's disappointed sighs. Just me, the estate, and a legacy Grandpa trusted me to protect. The security feed showed them finally leaving the dining room, heading to their respective wings of the house. Amanda was the last to leave, and I watched as she stood in the doorway, looking around like she was trying to memorize everything. Too late, sis. You played your hand, and you lost. I closed the laptop and leaned back in the chair, feeling the weight of the estate, my estate, settling around me. Tomorrow would bring chaos, no doubt. There would be tears, threats, probably some attempts to take things they shouldn't. But I was ready. I had security on alert, lawyers on standby, and most importantly, I had the truth on my side. Let them rage. Let them scheme. Let them try whatever they wanted. The house was mine. The legacy was mine. And in 48 hours, they would all learn exactly what it meant to underestimate the brother they thought they could simply vote away. I raised my glass to Grandpa's photograph. Here's to family, I said softly. The real kind. The next morning dawned with the sound of chaos. From my study window, I watched as my sister directed movers like a general commanding troops. She called them at dawn, clearly hoping to get ahead of the eviction timeline. Be careful with that. Her voice carried up through the glass. That vase is worth more than your yearly salary. I smiled, sipping my coffee. What she didn't know was that most of the valuable antiques she was so carefully packing were actually replicas. Grandpa had replaced the originals years ago, storing them safely in a secure facility after he first caught Amanda trying to sell a Ming Dynasty vase to cover her gambling debts. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, head of security. "Sir, your mother is trying to access the safe in the East Wing." "Let her try," I texted back. "The codes were changed last night." Right on cue, my mother's frustrated scream echoed through the house. I checked the security feed on my laptop just in time to see her pounding on the safe door, her face red with exertion. The family jewels she was so desperately trying to reach. Also relocated months ago, with Grandpa's blessing. The safe now contained nothing but old paperwork and a single note. "Did you really think I wouldn't protect what matters?" A knock at my study door interrupted my thoughts. "Come in," I called, already knowing who it would be. My father entered, looking older than I'd ever seen him. His usual confident posture was gone, replaced by a slight stoop. "Son," he started, then stopped, seeming unsure how to continue. "If you're here about extending the deadline, the answer is no," I said firmly, not looking up from my laptop. "James, please. Your mother, she's not well. She can't handle this kind of stress." Now I did look up. Funny how her health was never a concern when you were all voting to kick me out. He flinched. That was different. "We thought." "You thought what, Dad?" "That I would just accept it. Walk away from my home because Amanda convinced you I was unworthy." She showed us documents, he protested weakly. "Records of mismanagement, proof that you were planning to sell parts of the estate." I pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. "You mean these documents? The ones she forged?" His hands trembled as he opened the folder. Inside were Amanda's original documents alongside forensic proof of their forgery. Bank statements she'd altered, signatures she'd faked, all of it meticulously documented. She wouldn't," he stammered. "She did. And you believed her without even asking me for my side. Without even questioning why your perfect daughter suddenly had all this evidence against me." He collapsed into one of the leather chairs, the folder falling from his limp fingers. "I didn't know." "No, you chose not to know. Just like you chose not to notice when she started stealing from the accounts. When she began selling off small pieces of the collection. When she—" A crash from downstairs interrupted me. We both rushed to the window. Below, one of Amanda's movers had dropped a large crate. The contents, what she thought was a priceless antique desk, lay shattered on the driveway. "No, no, no." Amanda was screaming, falling to her knees beside the broken pieces. "Do you know how much this was worth?" I opened the window. "About $50 from Restoration Hardware." I called down. "The original is in storage." She looked up, her face contorted with rage. "You switched them? You had no right." "Actually, Grandpa did. Years ago. Right after you tried to sell his favorite armchair to cover your casino losses." Her face went white. Behind me, I heard my father's sharp intake of breath. "Casino losses?" he whispered. "Oh, didn't she tell you?" I turned back to him. "Your perfect daughter has quite the gambling problem. She's been stealing from the family for years to cover her debts. Want to see the proof of that, too?" He shook his head, looking sick. "I've seen enough." Another scream from downstairs, my mother presumably discovering another safe she couldn't access. The sound seemed to snap my father out of his daze. "What do you want, James?" he asked quietly. "Money? Control? Name your price to stop this." I laughed, and the sound made him flinch again. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about money. This is about truth. About consequences. About family. We are your family." "No," I said softly. "You're just people who share my DNA. Family doesn't do what you did. Family doesn't betray their own based on lies." He stood up, straightening his shoulders in a pale imitation of his former authority. "You can't just erase decades of history. Watch me." My phone buzzed again, another text from Marcus. "Mrs. Amanda is attempting to enter the wine cellar. Permission to intervene." I smiled. "Let her in," I texted back. "She's in for a surprise." The wine cellar, Grandpa's pride and joy, worth millions by itself, had been Amanda's true target all along. I knew she had buyers lined up, wealthy collectors ready to pay cash for rare vintages. What she would find instead was row upon row of empty racks. The real collection, like everything else of value, had been moved long ago. I turned back to my father. You should go help your daughter. I think she's about to have a breakdown in the wine cellar." As if on cue, an anguished wail echoed through the house. Father rushed out, leaving me alone in the study once more. I sat back down at my desk, opened a hidden drawer, and pulled out Grandpa's last letter to me. I'd read it so many times the paper was starting to wear out folds. "My boy," it began. "By the time you read this, they will have shown their true colors. It breaks my heart to be right about this, but at least I can protect you from what's coming. The estate is yours now, not just legally, but rightfully. You understand what it means to be a true guardian of our legacy, not just the money or the possessions, but the principles, the honor, everything they forgot in their greed." A soft knock interrupted my reading. Looking up, I saw Sarah, our old housekeeper, standing in the doorway. She'd been with the family for 40 years, seen all of us grow up. "Master James," she said softly, "the staff would like to know, are we to leave as well?" I shook my head. "Of course not, Sarah. You're more family than they ever were." She smiled, relief evident on her face. "Your grandfather would be proud," she said. "He always knew you were the one." From below, I could hear more chaos erupting, Amanda's screams mixing with my mother's sobs and my father's attempts to restore order. But up here, in Grandpa's study, my study now, there was only peace. The peace of knowing I had done exactly what needed to be done. The clock struck 10, 38 hours until they had to be gone. Let them rage. Let them cry. Let them finally face the consequences of their actions. I had an estate to run. The second day brought storms, both outside and in. Rain lashed against the windows as Amanda made her final desperate play. She arrived at breakfast with her lawyer, a sharp-faced man in an expensive suit who looked entirely too pleased with himself. "This is Mr. Davidson," she announced, strutting into the dining room where I was calmly eating my toast. "He has something to say about your so-called ownership." I didn't even look up from my morning paper. "Does he now?" Davidson cleared his throat, placing his briefcase on the table with theatrical precision. "Mr. Harrison, I'm afraid there are some irregularities in your grandfather's transfer of property. We have reason to believe the documents were signed under duress." Now I did look up, but only to take a sip of my coffee. "Is that your professional opinion, Mr. Davidson, or just what my sister paid you to say?" He flushed slightly but pressed on. "We have witnesses who will testify that your grandfather was not in his right mind in his final months. That you took advantage." "Stop," I cut him off, finally setting down my paper. "Before you continue this little performance, you might want to check with your firm's senior partners. Specifically, Mr. Whitman." Davidson's confident expression faltered. "How do you?" "No, Thomas Whitman. He was Grandpa's lawyer for 30 years. Still is my lawyer, actually. In fact," I pulled out my phone, checking the time. "He should be calling you right about." The lawyer's phone rang right on cue. I smiled as the color drained from his face while he listened to what I assumed was a very uncomfortable conversation with his boss. Amanda watched in growing horror as her lawyer's professional demeanor crumbled. I apologize for the confusion," he stammered after hanging up. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding. I'll be leaving now." "But you said you could stop this," Amanda shrieked as he practically ran from the room. "You promised." "Your lawyer shopping days are over, sis," I said, returning to my paper. "Every firm in the city knows the situation. None of them will touch your case." She slumped into a chair, her designer outfit wrinkled from stress. "Why are you doing this? What do you want?" "What do I want?" I folded the paper carefully, giving her my full attention. "I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything, to have your whole world pulled out from under you by someone you thought you could trust. I never. You did exactly that. You tried to take everything from me. The only difference is I actually had the right to take it back." A crash from upstairs interrupted us, the sound of something valuable breaking. Probably Mother, still trying to pack in a panic. "They'll never forgive you for this," Amanda said, her voice low and venomous. "None of us will." I laughed. "Forgiveness? From the people who were ready to throw me out on the street? I think I'll survive without it." She leaned forward, desperation clear in her eyes. "What about the staff? Sarah? The gardeners? The maintenance crew? You're putting their jobs at risk too. Actually, they're all staying. Unlike you, they've proven their loyalty. They're getting raises, in fact, Grandpa left specific instructions about taking care of the people who really keep this place running. That hit her hard. The staff had always been her biggest weapon, threatening their jobs whenever she needed to manipulate a situation. 24 hours left, I reminded her. Better finish packing. She stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. This isn't over. Actually, it is, but feel free to keep telling yourself whatever makes you feel better. As she stormed out, Sarah appeared with a fresh pot of coffee. More coffee, sir. Thank you, Sarah. I held out my cup. How's the packing going upstairs? She shook her head sadly. Your mother is not taking it well. She's convinced some of the paintings are still in the gallery. The ones Grandpa donated to the museum last year? The same. She's been staring at the empty walls for hours. I sighed. Part of me, a very small part, felt a twinge of sympathy, but then I remembered all the times she'd stood by silently while Amanda tore me down. All the times she'd enabled the lies and manipulation. Has security dealt with Father's attempt to access the garage? Sarah nodded. Marcus caught him trying to take one of the vintage cars. He seemed to forget those were transferred to your name as well. The cars had been Grandpa's pride and joy, a collection worth millions. Father had always assumed they'd be his one day, despite knowing nothing about maintaining them. I, on the other hand, had spent countless hours with Grandpa, learning about each one, helping him restore them, understanding their value beyond just their price tags. Sir, Sarah hesitated, there is one other thing. We found Miss Amanda trying to access your grandfather's computer in the study. I was on my feet instantly. What was she looking for? She claimed she left some personal files there, but Marcus noticed she was trying to access the financial folders. Of course she was. Probably looking for anything she could use against me or trying to hide evidence of her own misdeeds. Change all the passwords, I ordered, and have it do a complete security sweep. Already done, sir. And Sarah smiled slightly. We found something interesting on her old laptop. It seems she's been planning this takeover attempt for quite some time. There are emails dating back months, discussing ways to discredit you. I wasn't surprised, but the confirmation still stung. Save everything. Add it to the file. The file, sir. The one documenting every scheme, every lie, every manipulation, just in case she tries anything legal again. Sarah's smile widened. Very good, sir. Oh, and Chef wanted to know if you'll be dining in tonight. I glanced at the chaos visible through the window, movers struggling with furniture in the rain, my mother's periodic wails echoing from upstairs, Amanda's increasingly desperate attempts to salvage anything valuable. Yes, I decided. In Grandpa's private dining room, it's time I started using it properly. As Sarah left, I pulled out my phone and opened the estate security app. Through various cameras, I could see my family's desperate last attempts to maintain their grip on a life they'd taken for granted. Mother, still wandering the gallery like a ghost. Father, sitting in his old office, staring at empty shelves. Amanda, making frantic phone calls in the garden, probably trying to find another lawyer. 24 hours. Just 24 more hours and it would all be over. I touched the photo of Grandpa on my desk. Almost done, I whispered. Almost clean. The storm outside grew stronger. But inside, in this moment, I felt nothing but calm. The calm of knowing justice was finally being served. 1 year later, I sat in my study, reviewing the estate's quarterly reports. The numbers were better than ever. Investments up 40%, operating costs down, and 3 successful restoration projects completed. Grandpa would have been proud. A soft knock at the door interrupted my work. Come in, Sarah. I called out, recognizing her gentle tap. She entered carrying her usual afternoon tea service, but her expression was unusual, a mix of concern and hesitation. Master James, there's someone here to see you. Before I could ask who, Amanda appeared in the doorway behind Sarah. My sister looked different. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. She wore simple jeans and a sweater, her face bare and tired. James, she said softly, her voice lacking its old arrogance. Can we talk? I nodded to Sarah, who set down the tea and quietly left, closing the door behind her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Amanda stood awkwardly by the door while I continued reviewing my papers. You look well, she finally said. The estate, too. I drove around before coming in. Everything looks amazing. What do you want, Amanda? I kept my voice neutral. neither hostile nor welcoming. She moved closer, sinking into one of the leather chairs. I wanted to apologize. Really apologize, not like Mom and Dad's fake apologies when they tried to get money last month. That got my attention. I set down my papers and really looked at her. The change wasn't just in her clothes. There was something different in her eyes. The desperate, calculating look was gone. I've been in therapy, she continued, pulling out a small medallion. 6 months sober. Gambling addiction. It's a real thing. Not an excuse for what I did, but it helps explain some of it. I leaned back in my chair. And I've been working a regular job. Customer service at a department store. Living in a tiny apartment. Taking the bus. She laughed softly. It's actually kind of liberating, not having to pretend anymore. Pretend what? That I was perfect. That I had everything under control. That I wasn't terrified of failing, of not living up to everyone's expectations. She met my eyes. That I wasn't jealous of you. That surprised me. Jealous? Of me? You were the golden child. Yeah, the golden child who had to steal and lie to maintain that image. Meanwhile, you just were yourself. Grandpa saw it. He loved you for who you were, not what you pretended to be. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. I found these while packing up my apartment. Thought you should have them. Inside were old photographs, me and Amanda as kids, playing in the garden, building sandcastles, her teaching me to ride a bike. Happy memories from before everything went wrong. Remember when we were actually siblings? She asked quietly. Before money and status and everything else got in the way. I nodded slowly. We were quite a team back then. I miss that, she whispered. I miss my brother. I studied her face, looking for any sign of manipulation, any hint of the old Amanda trying to scheme her way back in. But all I saw was exhaustion, regret, and something that looked a lot like hope. I'm not asking to move back, she said quickly, or for money. I just want my brother back, even if it's just coffee once a month or a text now and then. I stood up and walked to Grandpa's old bar cart. I poured 2 glasses of water, not whiskey, noting her sobriety chip, and handed one to her. Coffee, I said finally, once a month, neutral location. We'll see how it goes. The smile that broke across her face was genuine, not her old calculated grin, but the real smile I remembered from those childhood photos. Thank you, she said softly. As she left, I watched her through the window, walking down the long driveway instead of driving. She looked back once, waved, then continued on. I picked up the old photographs, looked at our younger selves, smiling without a care in the world. Maybe some things could be fixed, but others might be worth trying to rebuild. Opening my desk drawer, I placed the photos carefully inside, next to Grandpa's last letter. He had always said family was more than blood. It was trust, honor, and forgiveness when earned. Maybe, just maybe, Amanda was finally ready to earn it back. The estate would remain mine, the boundaries clear. But perhaps there was room for a different kind of restoration project, one that had nothing to do with antiques or investments.